Henry Ruggs. He was the first wide receiver taken off the board in the very stacked 2020 wide receiver class. He was seen as someone that had a lot of potential, had insane speed, and was going to be the next great offensive weapon for the Las Vegas Raiders. Fast forward to today, his NFL career might be done, and he might be going to jail for a very long time. What happened to Henry Ruggs? Before I move on with the video, guys, remember to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, as we are on the road to 10K. Now, let's get into it. To start this video off, I am going to kick it back to his high school days at Robert E. Lee High School. He did not play high school football his entire career. In fact, Henry Ruggs would not actually play any high school football at all until his junior season. And even then, Ruggs never really thought of actually playing high school football until his best friend told him he needs to play football. He is a D1 football player. So he did. Although he would get a late start on high school football, he was a star when he joined. He was just that great of an athlete and just that great of a player when he first stepped on that field again. As a junior, he had 44 receptions for 1,007 yards and 10 touchdowns. Not only that, it did not take him long to start getting recruited by colleges as a junior during his season. As a senior, he was a do-it-all kind of player, as he had 184 passing yards for 3 touchdowns, 422 rushing yards for 6 touchdowns, and 38 receptions for 664 receiving yards and 10 receiving touchdowns. Despite joining high school football late, Henry Ruggs would still be a top recruit in the nation, as according to the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings for the 2017 recruiting class, he was a 4-star recruit, the number 11 wide receiver, and the 75th ranked player in the nation. And he had a lot of offers from a lot of Power 5 schools, such as Alabama, Florida State, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, Miami, Michigan, and Penn State, just to name a few. He would decide to stay in state and attend Alabama. He would join the number 1 class in Alabama that had eventual first-round wide receivers in Jerry Jeudy and Devontae Smith. As a true freshman at Alabama in the 2017 season, he wouldn't exactly be a main target. He played in 14 games, but every time he had the ball in his hands, he was doing damage. He had 12 receptions for 229 yards, averaging 19 yards per reception and 6 total touchdowns through the air. That's really insane, knowing that he scored half the time that he had the ball in his hands. In this season as well, Alabama would win the national championship versus Georgia 26-23. Ruggs would see a huge increase in production in his sophomore campaign in 2018, as in 14 games played, he had 46 receptions for 741 yards, averaging 16 yards per reception and 11 total touchdowns through the air. As a team, Alabama would make it back to the national championship game, except this time they would lose to Clemson 44-16, and Alabama would end up finishing 14-1 on the season. When it was time for his junior campaign in 2019, Alabama had a lot of high expectations, and people had a lot of high expectations for Ruggs as well. Ruggs would meet his expectations, as he was one of the best and dynamic receivers in all of college football that season. In 12 games played, he had 40 receptions for 746 yards, averaging almost 19 yards per reception, and 7 touchdowns through the air, and 1 touchdown on the ground. Alabama would have a down year. Now, let me just say this real quick. It's a down year for Alabama, going 11-2. It was still a really good team, but injuries did derail the team from reaching its full potential. They would end up winning their last game of the season versus Michigan with a score of 35-16. Shortly after the season was done, Henry Ruggs would announce he would be foregoing his final year of eligibility at Alabama and declare his name for the 2020 NFL Draft. And just like that, his time as a member of the Crimson Tide football team was officially done. In his career at Alabama, he had 98 receptions for 1,716 yards, averaging 17.5 yards per reception, 24 total touchdowns through the air, and 1 touchdown on the ground. Ruggs would also end his time at Alabama with his 24 total career receiving touchdowns, as that placed him third on Alabama's all-time leaderboard. Going into the 2020 NFL Draft, Henry Ruggs was seen as one of the top wide receivers in a very stacked wide receiver class and seen as someone that was going to be a first-round pick. He had a great combine where he had the fastest 40-yard dash with a 4.27 second 40-yard dash, and he even had a 42-inch vertical jump. Once the draft came by, he was the first wide receiver taken off the board, selected by the Oakland Raiders with the 12th overall pick in the first round. Henry Ruggs, as a rookie in 2020, would have his fair share of ups and downs as an NFL rookie. In 13 games played, he had 26 receptions for 452 yards, averaging 17 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns, and had a catch percentage of 60.5%. He would also have 9 carries for a total of 49 yards, averaging 5.4 yards per carry. Overall, it was a pretty decent season. He had some games where he absolutely balled out, and he had some games where he didn't exactly do the most. And a thing that kind of made him look worse, even though he still had a solid rookie campaign, is that CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson just had phenomenal seasons. For the current 2021 season, Henry Ruggs was showing more potential and improved quite a bit as a player, as in 7 games played in 2021, he had 24 receptions for 469 yards, averaging almost 20 yards per reception and 2 total touchdowns through the air. Not only that, but he increased his catch percentage from 60.5% the year prior to 67%. Things were looking up for the young, promising wide receiver in Las Vegas, but they would all come crashing down during the bye week. In the early morning hours of Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021, Henry Ruggs was involved in a fatal and tragic car accident that involved the other person dying. Henry Ruggs, according to prosecutors, was recklessly driving at a speed of 156 miles per hour just 2.5 seconds prior to impact. At the point of airbag deployment, the vehicle recorded a speed of 127 miles per hour. Not only that, but Ruggs' blood alcohol level was 0.16, twice the legal limit, and he had a firearm in his car. He currently faces 1 count of DUI and 1 count of reckless driving. They are also considering bringing up charges for the gun found in his car and another second felony DUI charge for substantial injury sustained by his girlfriend that was a passenger in his car. Because of all the news, the Las Vegas Raiders would end up releasing Henry Ruggs November 2nd, 2021 on Tuesday night. Henry Ruggs showed a lot of potential this season, but it seems like his career is more than likely cut short as he's facing some serious charges on his name and could even be going to jail. The thing with this entire situation is if this was just a regular DUI, Ruggs would still have his job in the NFL. He might just be suspended a few games. But this is entirely different. A life was lost because Ruggs drove under the influence and was driving recklessly. He has a very low chance in coming back to the NFL right now, in my opinion, just because a life was lost. It is a very sad and tragic situation, and it's just horrible as this is something nobody ever expects, especially when the NFL has stuff for players to be picked up if they cannot drive to avoid these situations. And Henry Ruggs was at Topgolf before that and apparently was drinking quite a bit according to the workers in mixed drinks. And another thing I don't really get is if he was this intoxicated, why did nobody stop him from driving? He wasn't the only one that was at Topgolf, and that's a big question to me, is why would people let him drive, and why would he drive while that intoxicated? I feel extremely bad for the family that lost a loved one, and I do feel bad for Henry Ruggs as well. I know I might get hate for that. I do feel worse for the family that lost a loved one, as you're never going to get that person back. But a reason why I feel bad for Ruggs is because this isn't the first time he's going to have to deal with a hardship like this, as his best friend that actually got him to play football would actually die in a car wreck himself, and it seems like that hit him pretty hard at the time, and this is going to be something that Henry Ruggs is going to have to live with forever, and his dreams in the NFL seem like they are effectively over. This is an instance that is going to be talked about forever, about what not to do, and it's really sad that it got to this point and that this even happened in the first place. This is going to be something that people talk about forever in examples of why you shouldn't drive while intoxicated, as it shows how your life can change in an instant just like that with the decisions that you make. Drop something down in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this entire situation? And before you head out, remember to smash that like button, turn on those post notifications, and subscribe for more videos. B. Kelly out.